My sister told me I wasn't elegant enough to attend the charity gala she organized for her nonprofit. She said I didn't fit her brand's image. According to her, showing up in my usual nurse scrubs or even a modest dress would make sponsors and influencers ask questions. My mother backed her up without hesitation. "It's Veronica's big night, Olivia. Try not to take things personally." That night, I sat in my small apartment still in my work uniform after a 14-hour ICU shift. I stared at the text message from my mom, thanking me for transferring the extra $200 for their grocery bill, then asking me not to make a scene about the gala. I felt something shift inside me. They had always dismissed me, always expected me to give, always assumed I would stay quiet. But this time was different. They made a mistake. I stayed silent and waited, because when someone underestimates you for too long, eventually you stop explaining yourself, and you show them exactly who you are. My name is Olivia Grant. I am 33 years old, a registered nurse working full-time in the intensive care unit of a public hospital in Cleveland, Ohio. I live alone in a modest one-bedroom apartment on the east side. Nothing fancy but clean and quiet. I drive a 10-year-old Toyota Corolla that gets me where I need to go. Most of my clothes come from sales racks, and I haven't had a vacation in almost 6 years. I don't wear makeup most days. My hair is usually in a bun. I get coffee from the hospital cafeteria, and my idea of luxury is sleeping through a full night without being called in. I never minded any of that. I've always believed that doing good work and living honestly was enough. That should have been enough. I wasn't born into wealth. My dad was a machinist at a manufacturing plant before he got sick, and my mom Linda taught high school English for 32 years until her retirement. We weren't poor, but we were never comfortable. After Dad's cancer diagnosis, I dropped out of college and moved back home to help. I picked up night shifts at diners and pharmacies, anything to pay the bills. Veronica stayed in school. My mother said she had more potential and that we couldn't afford to jeopardize her future. I didn't protest. Years later, when Dad passed away and I finally had the chance to go back to school, I chose nursing because I wanted to help people like him. Meanwhile, Veronica moved to Boston, got a degree in marketing, and began her journey in the world of nonprofit PR. She now runs a self-branded organization called Voices Forward, supposedly focused on women's empowerment. In reality, it's more of a lifestyle platform mixed with corporate charity partnerships. She hosts elaborate brunches, posts polished speeches about leadership, and gets invited to networking events in New York and Los Angeles. She's mastered the art of looking generous without doing the work. My mom idolizes her. To her, Veronica is the star, the success story. She brags about her to neighbors, posts her articles on Facebook, and calls her a true modern woman. When I come home exhausted from a double shift, my mother reminds me I should consider doing something more impactful. As if holding the hands of dying patients doesn't count. I have spent years making peace with being invisible in my own family. I gave money when they asked. I drove through snowstorms to help. I babysat Veronica's dog when she went to networking retreats. And I never expected recognition. But that gala, that was the moment I realized I was never invisible. I was inconvenient. And there's a difference. The truth is this moment had been building for years. The gala was just the final straw. I had always played the role of the quiet contributor. When our father died, I handled the funeral arrangements while Veronica posed for pictures in a designer black coat, posting captions about grief and strength. I let it slide. When Mom's roof leaked during a storm 3 years ago, I paid a roofer $2,100 out of my savings because Veronica was between invoices and couldn't help. That same month, she bought herself a Louis Vuitton laptop case and posted a reel about investing in your brand. I didn't say anything. Over the years, I've paid off 3 of Mom's credit card bills, covered unexpected vet costs for Veronica's French bulldog, even sent money to help with a minor tax issue involving her nonprofit. That tax issue turned out to be a $3,500 fine for missing donation reports. She never paid me back. In total, I had quietly spent over $31,000 of my own hard-earned income helping them. I know this because one day I sat down and tracked every transfer, every receipt, every online payment, every emergency Venmo. It made me physically sick. And yet, they still treated me like I was just the one with the stable job, the one who would always be there, the one who didn't need to be appreciated. Veronica's charity had always been a front, though I didn't want to admit it at first. She claimed to support women's shelters and small business grants, but whenever I asked for transparency or impact reports, she brushed me off. "You don't understand how donor strategy works," she'd say. Or, "There's a lot of behind the scenes work you wouldn't get." Once I offered to connect her with a friend of mine who worked at a real nonprofit one that actually ran food programs in low-income neighborhoods. She rolled her eyes and told me it wasn't on brand. Last year, when I helped organize a PPE drive for the hospital, I asked if her org could help promote it. She said no, that it didn't align with the mission. Then she posted a video that same week donating designer handbags to women in leadership transition, whatever that means. Meanwhile, she has staff contractors. She pays barely minimum wage, running her content calendar, editing her photos, managing email lists. One of them, a girl named Jamie, reached out to me anonymously months later. She was exhausted and said Veronica refused to let her take a day off when her father had a heart attack. I wasn't surprised. That's the kind of person Veronica is. Image over integrity, appearances over people. And somehow through it all, my mother still defends her. "She's just under pressure," she'll say. People expect so much of her, as if saving lives in an ICU isn't pressure. One winter, Mom slipped and broke her wrist. I took time off work to drive her to therapy appointments and brought groceries every week. Veronica sent a bouquet from Whole Foods with a note that said, "Heal fast, Mom, big things ahead this year." That was it. She didn't even visit, but I didn't complain. I just did what needed to be done, because that's what I thought love looked like. But then came the gala. When I first heard about it, I didn't even know Veronica was planning one. Mom mentioned it over dinner during one of her rare visits to Cleveland. She was glowing with pride. "It's going to be huge," she said. "Veronica's renting out the whole ballroom at the Chambers Hotel downtown. There's a red carpet. She's partnering with this clean beauty brand. Oh, and she said some influencers from LA might fly in." I smiled politely. I waited for her to say, "You should come." She didn't. So I asked, "Am I invited?" Mom hesitated. "Well, it's a very curated guest list. Veronica's team is handling RSVPs, but maybe you can come after the main event, for the family photos." I just stared at her. "You mean I'm not welcome at my sister's gala?" She looked uncomfortable. "Honey, it's not about that. It's just, you don't really move in those circles." Veronica's cultivated a specific look and feel for her brand. "And I don't fit?" I asked. "That's not what I'm saying," she replied, avoiding eye contact. "It's just, the crowd might not understand. You work so hard, and your job is noble, but this is a different world." That was the moment something snapped inside me. I thought about the thousands of dollars I had poured into our family without a second thought. I thought about every night I'd spent helping patients breathe through ventilators while Veronica made Instagram stories about emotional labor. I thought about how many times I had been their backup plan, their financial cushion, their silent fixer. And now I wasn't good enough to be seen at a hotel ballroom because I didn't wear designer shoes or talk in hashtags. That night I drove home in silence. I parked my car in the lot outside my building, leaned back in the seat, and cried for the first time in months. Not because I was hurt, not because I was surprised, but because I was done pretending it didn't matter. The week of the gala arrived faster than I expected. I had almost talked myself out of caring, convincing myself it was just another one of Veronica's spectacles. But when the night came, it was impossible to ignore. My social media was flooded with polished images. A press release circulated with Veronica's headshot, her signature red lipstick and sharp blazer standing in front of the Chambers Hotel. The caption read, "Empowering women, one story at a time." My mom posted a photo of herself getting ready for the event. Her hair was professionally done, her makeup heavy with shimmer, wearing a gown I had never seen before. She had borrowed it from Veronica's stylist. I hadn't even been told they were flying her in. Then came the final sting. A photo of Veronica adjusting a microphone backstage, standing next to a towering flower arrangement. The caption was, "Tonight we rise." Thank you to everyone who made this possible, especially my family for always believing in me. I stared at those words, my heart pounding. That's when I remembered I had transferred $800 to my mom the week before because she said she needed help with groceries. I had assumed it went to bills. Now I knew it paid for her nails, hair, and hotel stay, and I had helped fund Veronica's event without even being invited. My shift ended at 6 that evening. I didn't change out of my scrubs. I didn't shower. I just sat in the break room watching the event unfold from my phone, each update cutting a little deeper. A nurse I worked with, Maria, sat beside me and noticed the look on my face. "You good?" she asked. I nodded but said nothing. Because how do you explain that your sister built a kingdom of lies on your silence? That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Around 2 in the morning, I opened a locked drawer where I kept a folder labeled Family. Inside were printouts of bank transfers, screenshots of text messages, PDF invoices Veronica had forwarded to me over the years asking for help. Some were labeled things like Donation Bridge Sponsorship Gap or Vendor Emergency. All were fake. All had been covered by me. I looked at those papers and knew what I had to do. This wasn't about getting invited to a gala. This wasn't about a dress or being embarrassed. It was about the years I had been used, the kindness I had given that was mistaken for weakness. Veronica had built her image on generosity and justice while exploiting the one person who had never asked for credit. She thought I'd stay quiet forever. She thought I'd let it slide one more time. She thought wrong. I didn't rush. That was the key. I waited, observed, planned. There was no emotional outburst, no angry confrontation. I wasn't interested in drama. I wanted accountability. The morning after the gala, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time, Mia. She and I had gone to high school together. While I became a nurse, Mia went into journalism. She worked as an investigative reporter, now mainly focused on nonprofit fraud and financial misconduct. I still had her number saved. We hadn't talked in years, but I figured if anyone could see through the glitter and find the rot, it was her. I texted her a short message. "I have a story about a nonprofit built on lies." She replied within 5 minutes. "Let's talk." We met 2 days later in a quiet cafe near the hospital. I brought the folder. Mia listened carefully as I walked her through every detail. The money transfers, the vague vendor payments, the events disguised as networking but funded by donation money, the Instagram posts showing handbags and luxury stays right after supposed financial crises, the anonymous email I had received from one of Veronica's former assistants, even the tax fine I had covered that was never disclosed to her board. Mia didn't interrupt much. She took notes. Her eyes didn't blink much, but I could tell she was piecing everything together in real time. When I finished, she closed her notebook slowly. "This is Big Olivia. You know that, right?" I nodded. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth to matter. We kept everything quiet. Mia worked through official channels, cross-checking my documents with public records. She submitted FOIA requests, tracked down ex-employees, and dug through digital trails. She even found that one of Veronica's so-called empowerment retreats had been billed as a wellness program, but was actually a birthday vacation at a resort in Palm Springs. The best part, Veronica had posted photos from that trip with captions like "leading by healing." It was too easy. Mia told me to stay silent, not to tip anyone off. I followed every instruction. Meanwhile, I acted like nothing had changed. When Mom called to talk about how stunning the gala had been, I smiled through the phone and said I was glad it all worked out. When Veronica posted a new reel thanking our incredible sponsors and volunteers, I liked the post. And when my bank showed a charge from my joint backup card for an expensive dinner in Manhattan, I simply removed both of them from the account without a word. I also began untangling myself from their financial web. I canceled the recurring utilities I'd been covering at Mom's house. I contacted my bank to lock any automatic transfers. I unsubscribed from platforms that Veronica had linked to my Apple Pay. I didn't notify anyone. I wanted them to feel it. Quietly. Deeply. That week, Mia sent me an email. "We're almost ready. Story goes live Thursday morning." I read it 3 times. It was real. I'd done it. The night before the article dropped, I barely slept. I laid in bed thinking about how long I had carried them, how much I had sacrificed under the illusion of family loyalty, and how none of it had ever been enough. I thought about every time I swallowed anger just to keep peace, Every time I loaned money I couldn't afford to lose. Every time I erased myself to let someone else shine. No more. That morning, the article hit the homepage of the Washington Local Times. The headline was simple: Charity or Cover-Up? How one woman's empowerment brand exploits the very values it preaches. Beneath it, a photo of Veronica cropped from one of her many speeches. The story was brutal, detailed, documented. Mia had done her homework. She quoted former staffers, tracked suspicious expenses, cited donation mismatches, mentioned the financial ties to personal purchases. There was even a line about family members who provided private financial support without reimbursement totaling over $30,000. My name wasn't used, but it didn't have to be. Within hours, Veronica's name started trending on local Twitter. Comments flooded her Instagram. Sponsors began removing their tags from her posts. One major brand issued a public statement. We are suspending all partnerships with Voices Forward pending further review. Mom called me 4 times that morning. I didn't answer. Then she texted, "What did you do, Olivia? This is destroying her." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. I didn't owe her a reply. The fallout came fast. By the end of the day, Veronica's gala photos were gone from her profile. The captions replaced with vague messages about reflection healing and betrayal. She posted a story that evening, just a blank screen with sad piano music playing behind the text. When people closest to you turn on, you remember your light is too bright for their shadows. The comments weren't sympathetic. People wanted answers. A few of her old college friends even commented things like, "You always did seem fake, and karma finally showed up." I expected anger, but I didn't expect how quickly it would all unravel. By the second day, her organization's website was down. A few of the board members had publicly resigned. Mia forwarded me an email where one former volunteer said she had always suspected something shady but never had the courage to speak up. My phone rang nonstop. Mom again. This time I picked up. Her voice was strained. "What did you do to your sister?" she asked without a hello. "She's having a breakdown. Sponsors are pulling out. Her board is dissolving. She's barely eating." I stayed quiet. "Olivia, this is serious," she continued. "You need to fix this. Fix what I said calmly. The truth, I didn't write the article. I didn't fake donations or lie to sponsors." "You didn't have to," she snapped. "You gave them what they needed. You planted this." "No," I said. I revealed it. "There's a difference." She went silent. Then she said something that truly stunned me. "We raised you better than this." I let out a dry laugh. "You raised me to keep my head down and clean up everyone's mess. That's over. This isn't how families treat each other," she said. "I'm still your mother. She's still your sister. And I was still your daughter when you chose her every single time," I replied. "Even when she used me. Even when she disrespected me. Even when she made a career off pretending to be everything I already was." She tried to argue, but I hung up. I was done defending myself to people who only loved the version of me that stayed quiet. Later that evening, they showed up at my door. Veronica and my mother both standing there like ghosts. Veronica looked thinner, hair pulled back, no makeup. Her eyes were red and hollow. "You ruined my life," she said the moment I opened the door. "I built everything from nothing and you tore it down because you were jealous." I didn't reply. "You could have come to me," she said. "You could have talked to me." "I did," I said. "Every time I paid your bills. Every time I helped cover for your mistakes. I talked to you with my actions. You never listened." "That wasn't your place," she said. "I didn't ask for your help." "No," I said. "You expected it." My mother stepped forward, trying to mediate. "Girls, please. This has gone too far. We need to heal." "There's no healing without accountability," I said. "You taught me that. Remember." Veronica shook her head. "You're going to regret this. When the dust settles and you realize what you've done, you'll be the one left alone." "I already was," I said, then closed the door. After that night, I didn't hear from them for a while. The silence was loud, but it was the kind I had needed for years. My apartment felt different. Not bigger, not cleaner, just lighter. I didn't realize how heavy it had been carrying their expectations, their disappointments, their constant requests. I sat at my kitchen table and made a list. Not a to-do list or a grocery list, a freedom list. Things I had wanted to do but never could because I was always tethered to someone else's emergency. At the top of the list was graduate school. I had deferred a master's program in nursing education 3 times because of family obligations. I emailed the school, asked if reapplying was possible. They responded the next day, offering me a chance to enroll in the fall. I applied. The second thing was moving. I loved Cleveland, but I needed a fresh start. A different city, different energy. I searched listings and found a 2-bedroom in Pittsburgh close enough to visit old friends, but far enough to feel new. It wasn't cheap, but with the money I was no longer bleeding every month, I could afford it. I began packing little by little. Every item I boxed reminded me of how much I had put aside for others. I found receipts tucked into books, handwritten notes from my mom, thanking me for covering car repairs, post-it notes Veronica had left asking for cash before her trips. They didn't make me angry anymore. They just made me tired. One afternoon, I stopped by a second-hand shop to donate some furniture. The clerk, a kind older man, asked if I was downsizing. I told him I was actually moving for school. He smiled and said, "It's never too late to choose yourself." Those words stayed with me. I started doing things just for me. I bought a proper pair of walking shoes and began taking morning walks before work. I ordered a camera I had been eyeing for years and started photographing neighborhoods. I even signed up for a cooking class, something simple, just to be around strangers who didn't expect anything from me except to show up. One night, I sat down and created a blog, not for attention, not to go viral, just to write. I named it Quiet Strength. It became a small personal space where I shared stories about caregiving boundaries, resilience. People started reading. A few nurses reached out. One woman from Arizona emailed to say my story helped her leave a toxic family dynamic. I hadn't expected that, but I was grateful. I had spent so long being the backup plan that I forgot what it felt like to be the main character of my own life. Not someone's savior, not someone's shame, just a woman who finally said enough. As I moved forward, the consequences caught up with them. The investigation into Veronica's nonprofit didn't just stop at the article. State regulators began looking into her finances. Mia had passed along documents to the appropriate agencies. Within weeks, Veronica received notice of an audit. Her sponsors didn't return. Her public apology, posted in muted colors with vague language about mismanagement and unintended errors, was met with skepticism. The comment section was brutal. People wanted refunds. Donors asked for proof of how their money had been spent. She tried to launch a rebranding campaign, shifting from nonprofit leader to wellness advocate, but it didn't stick. No one believed her anymore. The brand she had curated for years fell apart. Her Instagram followers dropped by thousands. Her verification badge was removed. Her website domain expired and wasn't renewed. The silence from her board was telling. When I checked months later, Voices Forward had been marked as inactive by the state charity registry. My mother didn't take it well. She leaned deeper into the narrative of betrayal. At family gatherings I no longer attended, she told relatives I had turned on them out of jealousy, that I didn't understand ambition, that Veronica had only made a few mistakes and I had exaggerated them. But slowly, that narrative crumbled too. My aunt, who once doted on Veronica, called me one evening. She had read the article. "I just want to say," she whispered, "you were brave. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I thanked her, but I didn't need validation anymore. I had lived through it. I knew the truth. At one point, Veronica messaged me. Just one line. I hope it was worth it. I didn't respond, because it was. Not because I had ruined her, but because I had saved myself. I had stepped out from under the weight of her image. I had chosen integrity over appearances, and I had finally protected the one person I had never prioritized, me. Months passed. I saw her occasionally tagged in old photos, smiling wide in designer dresses from a life that no longer existed. My mother moved in with her for a while, but that arrangement didn't last. They clashed. Without money, without the admiration of strangers, they had little left but each other's disappointment. I heard from mutual connections that Veronica had taken up a remote consulting job, something low profile. No more interviews, no more panels. Her name stopped appearing in magazines. She became quiet not by choice, but by force. And me. I kept walking forward. There was nothing dramatic about their fall. No court cases, no headlines. Just silence. Reputation is fragile like that. One honest light can collapse years of manufactured glow. I didn't watch it happen out of spite. I simply no longer looked back. In the quiet that followed, I began to understand things I had never allowed myself to feel before. For most of my life, I believed that love meant sacrifice. That to be a good daughter, a good sister, I had to be useful. I had to give without expectation, show up without being asked, stay quiet, even when I was hurting. I thought love meant keeping the peace, even when the peace only benefited others. But I've come to realize that love without boundaries is not love. It's erasure. And self-erasure is a slow death. I was disappearing inside my own life, not from tragedy, but from 1,000 small concessions I made in the name of family. When I look back now, I don't feel anger. I feel distance. I see a version of myself always chasing approval that would never come, always waiting to be seen by people who had already decided who I was allowed to be. I see someone who confused loyalty with silence, who mistook being needed for being valued. And I don't blame her. She was surviving the only way she knew how. But I'm not her anymore. I don't owe anyone my exhaustion. I don't have to explain my worth. I don't have to apologize for protecting my peace. What happened with Veronica wasn't just about a gala. It was about a pattern, a system of dismissal and exploitation that had gone unchecked for years. Breaking that system didn't make me cruel. It made me free. Some people will tell you that walking away is selfish, that speaking up is betrayal, but those are usually the ones benefiting from your silence. The truth is, you can love someone and still walk away. You can forgive someone and still never let them near you again. Healing is not the same as returning, and for the first time in my adult life, I'm no longer running toward acceptance. I'm walking toward myself. A year later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment in Pittsburgh, a cup of coffee in my hand, watching the morning light stretch across the skyline. The air felt cleaner somehow. Or maybe I just felt lighter. I had finished my first semester in graduate school and passed with honors. I was teaching part-time mentoring new nursing students, something I never imagined I'd have the space to do. The blog I started had grown quietly. A few posts were shared widely among nurse forums and support groups. I even got an invitation to speak at a local mental health conference about caregiver burnout and family boundaries. I said yes. Not because I wanted attention, but because I finally had something to say that wasn't buried beneath someone else's noise. Some nights I still thought about my family, about the little girl I used to be who gave and hoped that one day she'd be enough. But then I'd remember how far I'd come, how much strength it took to say no, how hard it was to walk away without screaming to build something new from the ruins of my silence. I hadn't spoken to Veronica since that night. My mother sent a birthday card with no return address. It said she was thinking of me, that she hoped I was well. I didn't respond. Maybe one day I will. Maybe not. I've learned that closure isn't something other people give you. It's something you create, brick by brick, choice by choice. You build it by no longer arguing with those committed to misunderstanding you, by no longer offering your peace to people who mistake it for weakness. And when the silence settles in, it's not emptiness, it's space. Space to breathe, to rest, to grow. I don't need an apology to move on. I don't need recognition to feel worthy. I don't need an invitation to belong to a world I've built for myself. My life is mine now, and every morning I wake up and choose it again.